Shock, disbelief, fear, anxiety, guilt, sadness, grief, depression, and anger. These are some of the common feelings the American Cancer Society says you may experience after you are diagnosed with cancer. The journey following a diagnosis may be a long struggle, but what about the rush of emotions upon initially learning the news? Right now, as Winging It Buffalo Style goes pink, we are learning about the emotional effects of dealing with the news of a cancer diagnosis. We're joined right now on the couch by mental health counselor Lynn Shine. You're always here with our expert advice when we discuss things like this. We just looked at all of those pictures on the screen. Those are terrible feelings.
Yes.
That they tell you to be prepared for.
Well, those feelings are the feelings that everyone experiences in any sort of grief reaction. So initially you're shocked, and you're in denial that maybe it's not a true diagnosis, and you start bargaining with whether it be a higher power or you're bargaining with the doctors, and you go through period by period, depression and guilt and anger until you get to resolution. And it's waves of an ocean. It's not a clear little line. You go from one stage to the other to the other.
And when you're ready to start telling people, that can be very hard to prepare for what their reactions are going to be. What is your advice for people who are going through this?
I think you can tell anybody as little or as much as you want to tell them. Understand your audience. So there's some people, if you know that they like to chat or they'll give too much information, you may want to preface your statements with, listen, I know that a whole lot of people have this, but I'd rather you not tell me the stories. Or I have breast cancer, but I feel confident that we'll be able to be okay. So all of those things. So if you preface your statements, people's reactions will follow, like how you're discussing it.
And a lot of people have trouble dealing with the feeling that people feel sympathy for them or that they feel bad. Mm-hmm. That can be hard for people to deal with. How do you suggest people handle that? Because that's what people will feel for you if you are diagnosed.
That's exactly right. And people feel like they need to say something. And sometimes what they say, they feel like they need to give advice or they need to tell about their next door neighbor who has cancer, or and the reality is you shouldn't be saying any of those things. You need to say, gosh, I don't know what that feels like. I'm not in your shoes, but I'm sorry. Or, I'm thinking about you, or something like that, versus giving too much information to them.
So what if you hear through the grapevine that someone, maybe not someone you're incredibly close to, but that is an acquaintance, and you feel the need to reach out, just having heard about their news? What is an appropriate way to handle that?
Well, the first thing, and I like what you started with, you always reach out. Some people feel like they don't want to reach out because they don't know what to say. And that's probably the worst thing you can do, because it's a frightening, scary time, and they certainly don't want to lose their friends at that time. So reaching out and just saying, like I said, listen, I heard and know that I'm thinking about you. Or the other thing that people do, which I really think is fantastic, is having a chain of people that either bring over a meal if someone's going through chemotherapy or radiation and they're not going to have the energy to feed their families. And there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with that. So even just organizing something to take care of that family is a good thing to do.
So that's kind of how you deal with the initial reaction. But as we talk about coping along the way and continued support, so maybe you'd reach out initially, but then as you go through your treatments and things, how often should you be checking in, do you think?
Again, it really depends person by person. Some people don't want to have social connections. They're just trying to get through their day. But I think that reaching out, if you're on the other end of that, it can't hurt to send a little card or to just leave a message on the machine and preface it with, you don't need to call me back, but I'm thinking about you today. Or offering to sit with them if they're going for chemo. That can be lonely or frightening, and they want companionship. The other thing is, humor is a fantastic thing to get anyone through. So you don't have to be solemn, while you're going through it. Humor is fantastic.
Maybe
not
send
to be
a
afraid
funny
of
card
that.
or something that will make them smile. True.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much for joining us on the couch this morning for Winging It Goes Pink Week. Always great advice from our mental health counselor, Lynn Rifkin-Shine. We appreciate it. We're going to stay on this topic now as we're joined once again by web producer Emily Lenahan. She has another example of how this movement is spreading to social media.